Hi everyone, my name's Tim. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about a book that I read. Kind of, it's a book. It's more 5 books, and it's the first of 2 books, but also the first 5 of 10 books. This is the First Chronicles of Amber by Roger Zelazny. These were published in the 70s into 80s, I think, and part of my journey into fantasy, kind of classic fantasy, the history of it. I didn't know anything about this book going into it, and I have some interesting thoughts, I think, and that's kind of what I want to share with you. So first thing first is this highlighted to me how much format is a big thing for me. In terms of the pace that I can read and the enjoyment that I get from a book. So, I don't own the Chronicles of Amber. I went to buy it on the Kindle, and they were pricing each of the 5 books at like full price, which I think is bonkers because each book is about 150 to 200 pages. They were like short, pulpy novels that have kind of been part of this big series, and I didn't want to, it's a novella, 5 novellas, and you're paying 5 times the price for. But there is something called the Open Archive, which I have used before, which is a place for free where they keep old books and CDs and stuff like that. And in fact, with the books, they're mainly screen photocopies, but put into on the website, and you can look at. So you're looking at a picture or a copy of the book. Now, what I found reading this book is my ability to read a book that is paper is much higher than being able to read a book on a Kindle. Certainly a bit higher. And then I found those two I can read way more than I can on a screen. So you can read that on your phone or read it on a laptop screen. And so usually I read before going to bed, and with paper I try to read between 30 and 50 pages before bed. Depends, if I'm tired or if kind of book it is. And then same with a Kindle, I can probably read similar amounts, maybe more, maybe less, depends on the story. With Kindle it's harder to tell because you're just clicking and the pages aren't real because you can just make the text bigger and all this kind of stuff. With the screen grabs on the Open Archive, I could read 10 to 15, if that. And my eyes hurt, I got way more tired, and it just meant I started it just at the end of Jan, and I finished it on March the 1st. It took me the whole of February plus to read. It's 730 pages long, which is a long book, but it's not the biggest book in the world. And it was full of breaks and things like that. So it took me a very long time to read, which means the start of the book seems like a very long time ago compared to the end. And I was just trying to remember what the names of the 5 individual books were, and I couldn't remember the third one. It's just not there. But anyway, so that's the format of this book made a big impact to my enjoyment of it, which I think is a shame, because I might have really, really liked this book, but the way I was reading it greatly hindered that. But anyway, I've been chatting for like 4 minutes now and haven't even talked about the book. So, how to describe the First Chronicles of Amber? Is it a fantasy book? Yes and no. Is it a sci-fi book? Yes and no. It's about a multiverse of worlds that the royal family of Amber can traverse through at their own will. But is it really about that? No. What it's about is family dynamics. And my washing machine is on, and so everything just started shaking randomly. I'm not having an earthquake, you're not having a seizure. We're going to get through this together. So it's about family dynamics. It's about brothers and sisters vying for a throne, backstabbing, scheming, things like that. Those kind of things. I actually really enjoy reading. But I think there's too much of it here, or maybe it's just how it's delivered. So the plot is about, you have the world. The world is about, you have the kingdom of Amber. The king Oberon has stepped away, and he has a whole load of children, boys and girls, princes and princesses, who are vying for the throne. And we follow one character, in his view, Corwin Amber. Is he the oldest? No. Is he the youngest? No. But he deems himself most worthy for the throne. We see everything, basically everything, through his perspective. It's a first-person perspective. I woke up, I did this, I did that. So we don't see the scheming that other people do. We just see how he discovers it. Is that a good thing? Yeah, it's you get quite into his head, you see the scheming that he's doing, and then when he gets sideswiped, you also get sideswiped by a stab in the back or a change of allegiance, things like that. It does mean that when that stab in the back does happen, or that change of allegiance does happen, there's a lot of everyone just standing around talking about it, because the person needs to explain to Corwin and you, the reader, what is happening. This is the negative of politicking and manoeuvring and being stuck in this perspective. And I don't really see a way around it. There's no way around it. So towards the end, I think it's basically most of the fourth book is, people are stabbing each other in the back, literally, and Corwin's trying to figure out what's going on, and he's literally going to one group and he talks to them, and there's a very long discussion for like a whole chapter, 10 plus pages of just dialogue, and he learns some facts, and then he moves on to talk to another brother and sister and has the same conversation again, but he's like, I've just learned this, you tell me what you know now. And they tell him what they know, and then he goes, oh, that's good, and then he goes and talks to someone else, and it happens a lot. It happens a lot in a row. That's a big problem here, is the pacing of this is very up and down. I'm not a big fan of a slow burn, but I don't mind a slow burn if you can see that cogs are turning and things are happening and things like that. But it's just people talking about stuff. The action here is very spread out, and then when it does happen, it's quite quick. I think the action here is written not great. Certainly at the beginning. At the end, I think it does get a bit better. But there's one sentence which is like, I do an attack, and he riposts, and I riposte his riposte. Then he riposts my riposte to his riposte to my riposte. They don't know that we know that they know that we know. It's a bit like that. But I do think it gets better throughout the series. One thing as well is, you have all this politicking going on. The magic itself, I think, is pretty cool. You have people being able to just walk to different worlds by controlling shadow. There's something called the Jewel of Judgment, which feels really like 70s fantasy, which can control the weather and also do some other things. You have each prince and princess has a deck of cards with the faces of their brothers and sisters, and they call them trumps, and they can use them to communicate with each other, and also even like pull someone from the trump, so pull someone from where they are to themselves. So it's like a way of teleporting. And then the final piece of magic that they have, apart from the fact they just live basically forever, they live for a super long time, they can regenerate grievous wounds. It takes them a long time, but they can. Like, it takes years. It's not just like, oh, I'm just going to push really hard and I've grown my arm back. No, it takes years to do it, but they do eventually get back. They're very difficult to kill. And there's this thing called the pattern. And the pattern is something that is very key to their magic and their existence as the princes and princesses of Amber. And that's kind of the source of the magic. Is it interesting? Yeah, it's pretty cool. Whenever it's described that they're walking through shadow, Corwin is walking through shadow, it's just like an image, ... an image, ... a snowy forest, a peaking mountain, a rich beach with blue sand. Now I'm here. It's like that, but for a whole paragraph of just image, ... image, ... image, ... And that's one thing, actually, is the prose. The prose here, some of the prose is, I think, really not very good. It did have one line that made me laugh out loud because it was so bad. It was Corwin is with this woman, and afterwards it's like, she had a dream. She woke up next to me and looked at me and said, "I had a dream." Like, you got that in the first sentence that you said. You didn't need the second sentence. There's a few really clunky sentences. Also, something that's really interesting, and I don't think it's bad or good, but it happens really a lot in the first book, and it kind of narrows down the rest of it. But they don't talk like fantasy characters at all. So one thing is they're all talking about their dad, King Oberon. None of them say father, they just call him dad. Seems very informal for a royal family. And then in the first book, there's loads of battles and big conquests and things like that. And Corwin is worried about losing the battle. Is he worried about losing? No. Is he worried about being defeated? No. He's worried about getting creamed. Like, that's such like a 60s beatnik way of talking. They're like Ned Flanders' parents, man. They're like, oh man, I'm just worried we're gonna get creamed, man. Bizarre for like a character who's like years old. And I don't know if that's on purpose or by accident. I don't know if it decreases throughout the book, but I noticed it less. The first book was bizarre. That's one thing actually, is that this book is it just does its own thing. Like, there's tropes that happen that you think, I've never really read a book like it. So in the first, I'm not going to get into too much spoilers, but in the first book there is a battle between a knight on a horse and someone in a Mercedes. Who would win in a fight, a horse or a Mercedes? A magical horse, a super magical special horse, but it's just going up against a Mercedes. It's bizarre, like a fantasy jousting competition where someone's driving a sedan. There's like mirror worlds and dream worlds and things like that are really interesting. And you pull out something in the dream world and then it's real, and then you see that dream take place again, and you can't do anything about it because you in the dream are there, but you're invisible, so no one can see you. Just weird, loads of really weird stuff. But yeah, I think, what do I think of it? I think the characters they're interesting because you don't really know that much about them, even after reading them for 750 pages, because the prose, I think, is so focused on dialogue. The action is written very poorly. It does get a little bit better. Most of this takes place just in conversations. You don't really get a sense of space or time. You just get dialogue after dialogue after dialogue of telling you what people are doing. Hey, I just spoke to a person over here. He's doing this. What are you doing? Oh, person B, you're doing that. I'm going to go talk to person C now and tell them what person A and person B are doing. And they can tell me what they're doing. Do I like the epic? It's epic in scale, yes. It's bizarre, I like that. I like the politicking and the stabbing in the back, though I did get a bit confused at points because you only see Corwin's perspective. You don't see anyone else's. And one thing that I was watching the review of Kronk the Book Guy, who's a great YouTube channel. Go watch his channels, they're amazing. But he did an introduction to Amber. And he talked about in how male dominated it is. And there are women characters. I think there's 9 princes and 3 or 4. I think there's 4 princesses in Amber, but none of them have major roles. There's the thought of any of them going for the throne is like washed away. And with Corwin, whenever he meets a female character, they either get it on or she tries to kill him, or both. That's it. Like, it's weird. So I think that is a bit of a knock to it. But I think overall, the story's probably 2 to 3 stars. But for me, the experience of it with the formatting, I think I'm going to give it 2 stars. The thing is, will I read the next series, the next set of 5, which is really one book, which is the second book of 2, but it's also the 6th or 10th book of 10? Probably not. I probably won't. I do think as well, so it took me just over a month to read, but also for the last book, The Courts of Chaos, I found an audiobook for it, said by Roger Zelazny, which was very cool. He's got a very cool voice. He speaks like the guy from the Twilight Zone, or if you go to Disneyland Paris, the Quatrième Dimension. And so I could read that. I read the last book in a day, maybe 2 days of like reading, of listening to it, and then like reading while listening to it, which I think it's called immersion reading. So it took me over a month to read 5 books, and the last book took me 2 days. So it shows how the progress I made in the first 4 books was so slow, because of the formatting mainly, but also just because of the structure, and it's just like it's another conversation about stuff. Yeah, so yeah, I think it's probably, I've kind of talked to myself, it's probably a 2-star read, and I think I'm not going to go read any more. But if you can convince me in the comments below that actually it gets way better for books 6 to 10, then I'm willing to give it a shot. It's not a complete no-go for me. But anyway, if you read this book, let me know. If you enjoy my review, please leave a comment. I like engaging with people in the comments. If not, give this a thumbs up, and give this a thumbs up. Do both. And subscribe. And hopefully my washing machine hasn't disrupted this review too much, and you don't think I'm shivering or quaking in my boots. But anyway, I'll see you soon, and get out my house!